Good morning, and thank you, Tony, for forcing me to throw out most of my notes and change what I'm going to say.
Oops.
My purpose here today is to make you uncomfortable. Very exciting, right? Now, the kind of discomfort I'm talking about is the discomfort we all feel when we're learning a new skill. And that new skill is going to replace something that we have known for a long time. We know it's right, we know it works, and we're good at it. And we have to abandon that in favor of something else. Why? Why do we have to learn this new skill? And what is it? The new skill is about learning a new language. It's the language of business, because we're speaking to business people. We have to address the need for reasonable security without talking about reasonable security. And what we talk about instead is business disruption and the benefits of business continuity. That's what business people understand. Now, I've been a CEO of public and private companies, and I will tell you that you can't get more than 30 seconds into a meeting with a CEO if you're not talking about return on investment. And how do we quantify the return on investment for something, for creating a situation where nothing happens? That's a challenge. That's our challenge. Today, there's a great chasm in the language that goes on between technology people, cybersecurity people, and business people. And we're talking past each other. One group is talking business, the other group is talking technology. The two never meet. Now, virtually everything I have to say to you today is grounded in principles and the findings of neuroscience. And neuroscience is not behavioral science. Neuroscience is underneath behavioral science. It's where all of our decisions really get made. And then they're moved up to our consciousness, and we think we created it, but was already created in our unconscious mind. And that is the essence of neuroscience. Really simple, right? Now, how do you do this? You do it by demonstrating your conceptual understanding of the implications of disruption. So you're going to have to demonstrate your awareness and high-level understanding of things like finance, accounting, banking, legal, manufacturing, production, distribution, supply chain management, HR, turnover, employee morale, being able to attract and retain talent, and damage to your brand. These are all things that are affected by a cyber event. Most of them are never thought about, never talked about. When you can demonstrate that you have an understanding of the guts of what runs a business, you will have captured the attention and the interest of your audience. And it happens on an emotional level. That's what's going on in our minds. That is the only thing that people respond to in terms of acting. Information is interesting. Policy is interesting. None of it gets done if it doesn't register in our amygdala, the emotional center of our brain. Without a spark from the amygdala, no action. And that means no sale. And that means no change. We are not progressing in cybersecurity at a level that matches the growth of crime. And as long as that persists, we will never tip the scales in our favor. That's a sobering thought. From the period 2020 to 2023, cybercrime has increased 70%. It's a growth industry, and it's global. And until we match it and surpass it, we are not going to tip the scales. So we can continue to lament the fact that the data is there, the information is there, the case studies are there. We present it, it's factual, we know it's true, we can prove it, and people don't act. What is wrong with these people? They're not doing what is so obvious. What's wrong with them? I know the answer. Nothing. They are acting and reacting in the same way our brains have worked for 300,000 years, and it's not going to change. This is normal human brain wiring. No emotional connection, no action. Part of our survival mechanism. But here's what can change. The power to affect change is within us. As cybersecurity professionals and as people in professions that relate to and support cybersecurity, the power lies within us. We have not made our case. And the case can only be made when we can connect the elements of cybercrime and connect that on an emotional level. How do you do that? We have to turn presentations into conversations. Conversations are more intimate, more friendly, more inviting, and more conducive to sharing and creating stimulating ideas. So we have to become conversationalists. Now, in addition to that, we talk about stories that don't work. And there's a reason they don't work. They're interesting stories, but if there's no emotional connection, and what I mean by that is when people don't see themselves in the story, it's interesting, but it doesn't move the needle. Here's an example. We just had major fires. How many of you now have go bags ready? You're lying. You don't have them. Did you have them before the fire? How many of you don't have go bags ready? Why not? Because you don't see the fire burning your house down. It's that simple. And if you don't see the fire burning your house down, you have no emotional incentive to pack a go bag. So this skill of co-creating with the people you're talking to and trying to engage them emotionally, you must have the awareness to think metaphorically. Because if you can't think metaphorically, you will never be effective at co-creating stories in which everybody finds themselves engaged. Now, the discomfort. I talked about discomfort. When you're first learning any new skill, this one in particular, you have to practice it. And when you first practice any new skill, you're going to suck at it. And you have to be prepared to suck at something for a while until you get better at it. And how you get better is a process called neuroplasticity, the rewiring of certain brain circuits to embed the skills and make them instinctive. And at the same time, the region of your brain that was using the old skills actually shrinks in size and becomes inactive. So neuroplasticity requires time and patience and continuous engagement, and eventually you get it. And as you become proficient, doesn't happen overnight, as you become proficient, your discomfort is replaced with self-confidence and then eventually mastery. So when you master these skills, two things happen. First of all, you'll grow your business. If you're in the business of cybersecurity, you will attract more clients and you will be able to provide more services to the clients you already have. And secondly, you will, by doing that, in doing it in this way, you will position yourself as a trusted advisor and not merely a service provider. And eventually, you will earn that coveted seat at the table. And that's where we all want to be. So what I'm talking about is it's weird because when you do this, you have essentially made the sale. And you've made the sale and you haven't talked about cybersecurity yet. That's the counterintuitive part of this. You only talk about cybersecurity after you have essentially, psychologically and emotionally made the sale. How weird is that? It's human weird. It's the way people think. It's the way people make decisions. It's the way people feel. Because in the world of human interactions, what you've done is you have built trust, and trust precedes trade. Trust precedes trade in all things except politics. And that's the truth. In politics, you regularly make deals with the devil. One of my good friends, in whose class I lectured in at USC, Errol Southers, he's now the president of the police commission. He's the head of all security for USC. He was Obama's first pick to head TSA. And he keeps talking about his friends. I said, those are your friends? What? Those are not your friends. I said, how do you define friend? He said, that's easy. Anybody who's not trying to kill me. And I said, well, what am I? He said, oh, you're family. I said, that's different. So we're going to talk some more about, we're going to dive into this more deeply throughout today. One of the panels, this what would it take question, will examine the neuroscientific relevance and importance of exactly that question asked exactly that way. And before we do that, I want to talk about creativity, another aspect of creativity. And that is how we co-create, spontaneously co-create unscripted stories with our audience. It is a new skill, it's an important skill, and it's a skill that you must master because it overcomes all of the things that have plagued policymakers and cyber professionals and really all professionals, and has prevented them from making the progress that the subject matter itself deserves. So what does that look like? So in leading up to today, I was looking for an anecdote, a real life story that I could share with you that would demonstrate how this works. And I couldn't come up with anything. And then the Saturday before Christmas, 10:30 on a cloudy morning, my wife Arlene and I went to Pete's coffee shop in El Segundo for coffee, and it happened. Actually, I helped co-create it. So we got to Pete's, and she stood in line to order, and I sat down at a corner table. And at the other end of the table sat a couple. I think they were in their early 60s. And I sat down, and they glanced at me and smiled, and I smiled back, and I said, thank you for allowing us to sit at your table. And they smiled and laughed and said, oh, anytime. You're welcome to sit at our table anytime. Excuse me, I'm Joan, this is Howard, I'm Bill. And then Howard said, so it's that time of year. You guys celebrate Christmas or Hanukkah? And I said, yes. And they thought that was good too. So then I proceeded to tell them, I said, in Manhattan Beach, there's an old tradition. Every year at this time, the Manhattan Beach Police Department gets a convoy of 4 police vehicles and a motor-driven sleigh containing Santa, the elves, and the Grinch, and they ride up and down the streets in every neighborhood in Manhattan Beach with lights flashing and music blaring, and they stop, and the kids come out, families come out, they get up on the sleigh, they sit with Santa, take a picture, get a little treat. It's a great time. So they stopped in our street, and my wife Arlene ran out, went up to the sleigh, and she looked, and in a chair next to Santa was the rabbi from the Manhattan Beach Temple. And she said, what are you doing here? And he laughed, and he said, this is a great time. We should all celebrate each other's holidays and learn from each other and grow and bond as people. This is a wonderful time. So they thought that was a great story. And then Joan proceeded to tell us that she said, you know, I just finished reading the Bible, cover to cover, Old Testament and New Testament. And I said to myself, my moment is here. And my amygdala was doing cartwheels. And before my prefrontal cortex, the part that reasons and is logical, before my prefrontal cortex could engage, I spoke. And I said, oh, so you enjoy reading historical fiction? This was either triumph or tragedy, people. And Howard began to laugh hysterically. He said, that's one of the funniest lines I've ever heard. So I continued, and I said, well, let me elaborate. Even though there is no scientific connection and proof behind the stories in the Bible, religion still plays a vitally important role in our lives because it teaches us our moral values. It teaches us how to treat each other, how to get along in the world. It provides the foundation for order. It gives us faith in something greater than ourselves. And if we didn't have religion, humanity would disintegrate and crumble, and we would become obsolete. We would destroy ourselves. And Joan said, yes, yes, faith. It's all about faith. Well, we had landed. We had spontaneously, unscriptedly, is that a word? Unscriptedly created the story around which we could all agree. And then we began to share our experiences with faith, each in our own lives. And we were bonding. We were building trust. If it weren't for the fact that they lived in Tucson, they were just visiting, it could have been the start of a new friendship. And that is the kind of anecdotal experience that I wanted to share with you today, because it conveys the importance and the relevance of spontaneity, of being unscripted, of just allowing the conversation to meander until it lands. And when it lands, you've got a real connection and you've got the stimulus for action. Now, that's different from the solid logic of policymakers and business people and cybersecurity professionals and technologists and all the professionals, the bankers, the attorneys, et cetera. It contradicts that to the degree that we're using neuroscience, pure applied neuroscience, to get us where we need to go. So through the course of today, we're going to delve more deeply into all of these techniques and skills and stories. And I'm not disregarding or playing down the importance of all of the technical and technological knowledge and science that's important. I mean, that is how you do what you do. It's critically important, and we have to stay on top of it. But it is not in and of itself the force that will move the needle. So today is the start of this new experience. And I say to you, let us begin. Let us begin. Let us begin. Thank you.